Good evening. I'll call to order the Township of Hampton Council meeting for Wednesday, April 10th, and we will start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Blackburn?
Present.
Ms. Fritsch?
Present.
Mr. Midgley?
I request, could somebody unmute the Teams meeting?
Oh,
There you guys are.
yeah.
Now can you hear us?
Now I can say present when it's my turn.
It is your turn.
It is your turn.
Present.
Mr. Shuley?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Speakman?
Present.
All right, the first item on the agenda is citizens' agenda matters. If anyone has anything that they would like to address to council, please step to the podium and state your name and address.
This is regarding the fried cane proposal, correct?
Actually, this is just citizens'
General.
agenda matters. We're going to open that hearing in
Okay.
just a second, so if you want to
I'll
talk
wait.
about that, give it just a couple minutes, so
Thank
we'll
you.
get you on the record. Thank you. All right, so since there doesn't seem to be anything else, can I have a motion to continue and open the public hearing for the Fray Cane preliminary PRD application 23-08?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay.
Ms. Blackburn?
Favor.
Ms. Fritsch?
Favor.
Mr. Midgley?
Favor.
Mr. Shuley?
Favor.
Dr. Johnson?
Favor. Are we starting it with a presentation?
No, first let's start with anyone who wasn't here in the prior
Need to
hearing
swear them in.
needs to be sworn in the event that there is any testimony or comment that they would like to make with regard to the record. And of course, I know Mr. Victor was sworn in and I know Amanda was sworn in, but I believe Mr. Seitz and Adam, and then of course the resident. And if there are anyone else who wants to quote unquote offer testimony with regard to this matter, would you please rise to be sworn for that testimony?
And raise your right hands, please. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Then I think we should start with Amanda to give us
Sure. All right.
current presentation,
Thank
current
you.
status.
So just a very brief update on where things are at with the application. They did submit revised plans on April 5th. I'm going to allow the applicant to kind of go through the changes that those plans encompass, but I do want to read the decisions from the EAC and Planning Commission into the record because they both had their meetings this past week. And then just a reminder, the extension is 60 days from the close of the public hearing. So if we close the public hearing tonight, you'd have 60 days from tonight. Practically speaking, that would be the May regular meeting, or else we would have to have a special meeting in June in order to stay within that time frame. So the Planning Commission reviewed this application on Monday. They recommended approval subject to the following being completed within 60 days and prior to council's vote on the preliminary application. The applicant addressing all outstanding engineering comments, the applicant providing documentation that the developer is permitted to remove and replace the section of private storm sewer as proposed to satisfy the solicitor, and providing documentation that the applicant adequately provides road widening along the frontage of the property that satisfies the public road standards in accordance with the MPC or as deemed acceptable by the township engineer. So for the last condition, I discussed that with the manager and assistant manager, and I think the determination is that we would not want to see the road widening. So we don't want that condition. I talked to the solicitor, and there's not a modification that is needed for that.
That's correct.
Thank you. So the EAC reviewed the plan last night. They voted to recommend that council does not approve the plan based on their outstanding concerns that include environmental concerns regarding land area disturbed, stormwater affecting residents on site and downstream, affecting general stream quality, air pollution and noise, safety concerns that are not limited to the structural integrity of the bridge, parking spots, and the general ability to enter in and exit the property via vehicle. and accessibility concerns such as the difficulty of access to the recreation area and with steep slopes that may make it inaccessible for maintenance and create additional burdens to the homeowners. So those are where the recommendations from our board stand. As always, we appreciate their comments. They're very diligent review. A lot of time goes into that. The only note I would make for tonight is that the approval at this level or denial is constrained by our existing ordinances that we have enacted already. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We have the developer here, and then we have engineers from Gateway and PVE as well if you have questions.
Perhaps if I can, for the purposes of the record, Amanda, when we were last here, there was an issue of making certain that the storm water, as it would relate to the driveway areas, was resolved, and I believe that the developer has agreed to accommodate what our engineers have indicated with regard to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then second, there was at that time, there was a request for modification of the buffer to the wetlands, and that has gone away. Is that correct? So the plan's been redesigned to
Yes.
eliminate that. I know that there are a number of outstanding comments from both engineers, PVE with regard to stormwater, and then of course Mr. Seitz. I'm assuming, and not to steal Mr. Victor's thunder, but I'm assuming that progress is being made with regard to addressing those comments. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that. The developer could speak to that. They've
Okay.
received the comments, but we have not gotten any plans back.
Okay.
Their testimony at the advisory boards was that they would be able to resolve those comments from the engineers.
Okay. And then there was one final issue, if my memory served, had to do with some outfall over in the Windmont plan. Is there some easement that is necessary in regard to that?
Yes, there's an existing stormwater pipe that is along South Pioneer Road that was carrying some of the runoff from the Windmont development.
Okay.
And so my understanding from the applicants is that they will need to make some modifications to that pipe. And since the pipe has not been turned over to the township, it's still privately owned. So the position at this point, as was at that point, is that they need to seek approval from the owner of that, which is Crest Brothers, who are the developer of Windmont.
Okay, and is that contained in either of the engineers' reports, or will that be a condition of the township?
That is contained in at least the Planning Commission's recommendation. So that is one of the conditions that they would like to see satisfied before council votes
Okay.
on the preliminary application.
All right. Very good. Mr. Victor?
Good evening, Stephen Victor, Victor Wetzel Associates. That was sworn in last month. We would like to just respond and say that we have reviewed both engineers' review letters, and we feel that they are items that can easily be addressed. So we're working toward making those responses. We had the meeting with the Planning Commission Monday, the EAC on Tuesday, and yourselves tonight. Once we have completed that track, if you would, the next step, we'll make a written response to all of those comments, but our engineers feel comfortable that they can do so. I would like to just take a brief time to show you the PowerPoint, just to show you the changes that have been made to the plan. And basically, there's just two changes that have occurred. So next slide. Again, just for anybody in the audience, they can see the property is the triangular shaped parcel outlined in red. It's approximately 17 acres, and it's on the southwesterly side of Pioneer Road, which is adjacent to the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Next slide. This was the plan that we presented to you last month. Lot number 1 is a single family house, and lots 2 through 12 would be duplexes, so there would be 23 units on the property, and there's been no change to the basic configuration of the lots and the open space. Next slide. This shows you the drawing we presented last month, and in the center bottom of the site you will see sort of the elliptical shape is the stormwater detention facility, and that was the one we were requesting the modification to build within 35 feet of the wetlands. And we have changed that now. So next slide shows, and here this was a blow up of last month, so where the blue area represents the 100-foot setback from wetlands, showing how the prior plan had encroached into that 100 feet. Again, sort of keep in mind the shape of it here. And then the next slide shows you how we have sort of skinnied it up and elongated it, pushing it a little further toward the northwest there, keeping the same area of the volume area of the detention facility, but we now comply with the 100-foot setback, so we have removed that modification request. When we did this, it did impact the overall landscaping, and next slide shows you the landscaping plan from last month required a mitigation of 342 trees. A lot of that occurred in the detention facility where it was a heavily wooded portion of the site. The next slide, oops, back up one because we went too far. This is the new one, and by stretching it out, it puts us in an area where there were considerably fewer trees, and so our mitigation tree count dropped from 342 to 277. So we have 65 less trees that we have to mitigate. So it's difficult when you're planting that many trees to scale to really tell the difference. We have reduced it by 65, but that is what has happened here. So we have complied with that. And just one more slide, just in case someone wants to make reference again to the fact that it shows where the buildings would be located, the brown structures on the site, and again the storm detention area. And then at the upper left side there is a flat area. That's where the community recreation is taking place. There is a walkable trail to get up to there. That trail is wide enough that maintenance equipment such as lawn mowing, etc., can go up that. And so the EAC's concern about the inability to maintain that, we think, is not a correct assumption, because the trailway easily accesses it for both pedestrian and for maintenance vehicles for that. So, again, there were just the two changes from last month. Reconfigured the shape of the detention facility so that we no longer need the modification, and then the reduction in the number of mitigation trees. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you.
This would be an appropriate time for council, if you had any questions of Mr. Victor, to ask them. I do have one question, Mr. Victor, and perhaps Amanda, you can help me with this. I know that the EAC has raised the issue about noise pollution attributable to the turnpike there. Is there any contemplation of trying to mitigate some of that noise? Because I know it has been a concern in the township in at least one other development, correct?
Yes.
And we were kind of saddled with it after the developer was gone, and we like not to have this developer go before we address the question.
Well, quite honestly, we were a little surprised that this came up at the second time we went to the EAC. So we've really not had any time to sort of give it a full response, but in discussing it with the staff today, our staff, my office, we have an abundance of mitigation trees on our property, and one of the thoughts is that we could reach out to the Pennsylvania Turnpike and see if they would allow us to do some of that planting in their right-of-way. From our property, there is the Pioneer Road right-of-way, and it's the township policy not to be planting within that, so we can't plant there. So we'd have to sort of step over onto the Turnpike property, and if they will let us plant, that certainly would be another option for us to do that. And so Amanda's providing me the contact information, and we will reach out to that individual and see if that is an option.
Yeah, that's, Mr. Victor and I had discussed that before the meeting, and I think that is a solution, but I do think that something like that would require explicit approval from council, because the trees are now going off the property, which is not strictly allowed under the ordinance. So it's not that it's, not a solution, and could be a good solution. I think it's just, that might be a modification for something like that.
So, but we will have some submission before council needs to make a decision, at least on the tentative approval, correct?
Yes, and that would be my recommendation, would be, at this point, the planning commission is feeling like there needs to be at least addressing enough of the stormwater comments that we can get a recommendation from PVE that the plan is in order for consideration. There might be some comments that would be reasonable to carry over to the final phase, but I think there are some that need to be addressed before the preliminary vote. In combination with that, I think we need to have at least some kind of indication from the owner of that stormwater pipe that they are okay with the applicants using that and modifying it. Now, easements, legal documents, that kind of stuff could be provided with the final phase, but I think we need something from them in writing saying, yes, we will be okay with that, to prove that this is feasible, which is all part of the tentative criteria.
We have initiated that conversation with Cresses, but we weren't able to get that today, so there wasn't contact made with them, but we have reached out to them, and I'm sure that'll happen. And as regards to the Turnpike, I will submit the letter to them tomorrow outlining this, and any communication with them, obviously we will copy Amanda on so that she can see that we are progressing with it and any responses they may have.
Now, we have obviously Adam and Mr. Seitz from the engineers. Is there anything that you would like to add aside from answering any questions that may be posed by council or any member of the public? Mr. Seitz has none, Adam has none. Correct. And the developer has your review letters with all of the various points that you have raised, correct? Those have been made a part of this record, so we know what they are. Okay.
And we are in response, a receipt of there, and we're working toward making our responses.
And I'm sorry, the member of the public. Yes, please, would you please identify yourself?
I'm Janet McCall, and I live on South Pioneer Road, south of the proposed development. I've been there for 19 years, and I have about 7.5 acres, most of which is Kraus Run, which winds its way through the property. So I have a kind of a 24/7 perspective on Kraus Run. And I want to talk a little bit about the proposal, but also a broader context of what I've seen over time with some of the development that has happened upstream over the years. It's when I bought the property in 2005, it was a quiet, healthy stream with abundant habitat, birds, blue heron, green heron, fish, wildlife, breeding areas for mallards, etc. And over time, especially in recent years, some of the developments have really taken a toll. And last Tuesday's flood was another example. I was briefly in touch with Ryan and Susan and Amanda about it. I've never seen such bad flooding. Once again, this is the third time now water came and was touching our home. The water coming down the side, it's not even a creek. It's a bricked in area that's mostly dry, rose several feet and flooded our driveway. Massive flooding coming from north on Kraus Run, like entire trees. I saw an 8-foot footbridge go downstream. Pretty much our whole property. I do have video, I have photographs, and I have watched the stream over time and really tried to be helpful to the township. I am in touch frequently with Amanda and Susan if I see turbidity issues in terms of development that has happened previously or odd discharges. And they've been responsive, but I do have to say it's a serious problem. I don't know how many of you have ever walked Crouse Run or how many of you have been over there to see what happens with flooding, but it is really very serious and frightening to me as a resident. So I just wanted to talk about that in the context of the Fry-Kane proposal. I feel like there's been so much damage, scouring of the creek, buildup of sediment, trees that have been ripped away by the water because their root systems were eroded, a lot of tremendous debris that has caused buildups, dams in the creek, and then that makes the flooding even worse. We have gas lines going through there. We have a sanitary sewer system that winds its way all along that creek in and out of the water. And things like entire tree trunks or footbridges going through risk really serious damage. So there's an infrastructure concern there. And so I just feel like even with the stormwater taxes, now there has been some improvement, and Susan was great 2 years ago, came and tried to address some of the issues. Now we've got a lot more as a result of this latest flood. All of that cleanup is on me, the individual owner, mud and debris and stick lines, and it's a huge job every time it happens. And you know, when we bought the property, we looked at the 100-year flood line. Well, 100-year floods are now happening very, very frequently. I don't know how frequently we have updated the 100-year flood line in terms of Crouse Run and what's proposed for this plan. But what I'm here to suggest is that I really hope the township will be forward-looking in considering which plans to approve and to look for plans that really exemplify best practices and kind of a forward vision. We're having such extreme climate change, weather conditions are unpredictable, the volume and the force of the water is so much more severe than it used to be. We need to get in there and dig out and address the problems that we have now, because I feel like we're already over capacity and we're going in there like with a lot of Band-Aids, and Band-Aids are, you know, I feel like the finger in the dike. Before we add more plans, unless those plans are really taking a fresh look and looking ahead to where we're going and the climate changes and what is needed. So in that context, and I just want to say that last Tuesday, Crouse Run increased tenfold in width. It's normally about 6 feet wide, and now it's not very deep because there's so much sediment buildup. It was over 60 feet. The water was right up to the edge of the gas pipe marking on the far side of the creek. So, concerns that I have really about the plan, the number one thing is just it's adding more volume to something that I really think is overcapacity. Beyond that, more specifically, I don't think the plan is visionary, no offense intended, but it's an odd piece of land. The way the houses are lined up sort of along the turnpike, there is a noise pollution issue, there is a sound issue. I wouldn't want to live there. I don't know if it represents kind of our vision for Hampton and where we want to go. But the most concern that I have is really about the excessive flooding and the damage to the watershed. And I do have a question. I don't have any idea how this is calculated, but how is it, if you're a developer, that you determine on paper when you're looking at a stream that your plan and to discharge stormwater into that creek, how is that capacity determined? I mean, I'm living there beside it, and I feel like we're already so far over capacity. So, I mean, and I'm just a layperson, I don't know, but I wanted to share this information with you because it's a real serious concern. So, thank you very much.
Ms. McCall, thank you for your insights. And Adam, if you don't mind responding to that question.
Yeah. As for the capacity in the stream, Cross Run does have a 75, they have to reduce it to 75% of the current flow to the stream. So that's the flow rate will be reduced by that with their stormwater pond. The volume, they're required to reduce the increase of the 2-year storm event. And since they're coming from basically woods in good condition to impervious, that's kind of where most of my letter goes towards. Like, they're adding roughly 1.5 acres of impervious, and they're not quite treating all of it because they're not capturing the driveways leading to the stormwater pond, which is the big thing. So once they can get those into the stormwater pond and that gets infiltrated, they will be easier for them to meet that 2-year increase in volume. That's kind of what's the big deficiency, which is in my letter. I think it's number 16 through about 20, with the curve number calculations, which is the SCS method, which is the method that we use to calculate the volume and runoff to that point.
Adam, maybe for the lay people in the room, is it fair to say that the evaluation that you perform as a stormwater management expert is to determine that with the addition of the impervious surface, the rooftops, things of that nature of this plan, the developer must account for all of it so that it does not change the runoff into the area? In other words, it must be accommodated. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And we,
that's, I know I discussed with you a few times at your house with the sediment and everything from the Winmont plan. Since then, like, you'll also see in, like, my last comment, I've looked at the ENS plan a lot harder than typically, like, ACCD approved it. I've also reviewed it and have commented on it just to make sure. I mean, Crossrun's, it's attached to Crossrun, so just to make sure that Crossrun is protected during the ENS phase, which is currently what Woodmont is in.
so as a part of the review, as a part of this record, and as a part of the obligation associated with the developer, they need to address some 50 different comments associated with the stormwater management plan. And I believe Mr. Victor has indicated that they're in the process of addressing those to hopefully address the issue that you have raised. Okay?
All right, I do have a question, and I think this is more for Amanda. The EAC said that they have safety concerns that are not limited to the bridge, to the parking, which I assume is at the mailbox, or to the difficulty of access, of entering and exiting the property. What are their other safety concerns?
All I got was I don't go to the EAC meetings, so
Oh, okay.
I have their motion, but we can work on having their minutes available so you guys can read those before you would make a decision.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I would like to know what other concerns they had aside from those three.
So, kind of going off something that the resident just mentioned that kind of made me think a little bit more. What is the market for duplexes next to the turnpike?
We believe that it is saleable, so we don't have any problem with
So
its
they're-
location or the fact that it's duplexes.
So they're not rentals.
They
You
are
would
for
buy
sale.
like half of the building.
They are for sale,
They're
yes.
for sale. What's like the market rate for half of the building?
I would say between $3.25 and $3.75.
And are you worried about the noise from the turnpike?
No.
Why?
The construction that they do today with the level of insulation to meet the requirements for heating and cooling. Does an excellent job of soundproofing. So it's not perfect. Somebody opens a window, you're going to hear those things. Somebody steps out in the front of the house, that they will hear the noise coming by, but if you're in the back of the house, you won't. So the house becomes almost like a sound barrier. So
Question, when was Cross Creek created?
Cross Creek was installed probably around 2013.
How far away are they from the turnpike compared to how far away these homes would be from the turnpike?
Distance-wise, it's probably comparable for only the lots up in the back along the cul-de-sac. So Cross Creek isn't entirely fronting the turnpike like this is, but the rear lots along the cul-de-sac are. There's a little bit more green space with Cross Creek than there is here, where you just have the pavement from the turnpike and then a small bare, grassy median.
And you said that was 20,
It was probably around 2013, I believe.
have there been, do we know what kind of improvements there have been made in terms of construction? Because the problem, one of the problems I believe that we saw was the Cross Creek residents up against the turnpike. Once they moved in, they realized even inside their homes, the turnpike was loud. So I guess a concern is, has construction really changed where the individuals that buy these homes, it's not going to be as loud as those that bought Cross Creek that suffered?
do you know who the builder was in Cross Creek?
I believe it was Ryan.
I believe it was Ryan.
I can confirm with them if there are any construction standards that they have changed since 2013, and report back to you on that.
Is there, on that topic, is there ability to soundproof in any way above what's normally,
For
in
the
constructing these townhomes? Is there anything additional that could be done?
I'm sure there is.
Okay.
Sure there is, and that's, we'll pose that question to them, make them aware of that. Obviously, they want to be able to sell the homes, and because they had that experience previously, let's put them to giving us a solution for this.
And you said, just being repetitive, sorry, I think the market value, so approximate list price of the home will be mid-threes.
325,000 to 375,000.
Looking at the plans, I wasn't really clear. How long are the driveways? Like 2-car, 3-car, like 100 feet approximately, like from the home to the street?
Amanda, do you remember the front yard setback, or can you read it on the drawing?
Let me see if I can.
I'm thinking it was
Well, it's a PRD, so I'm sure it wasn't
more than
the 40.
a car length, but not 2
40
car
foot.
lengths. There are additional parking spaces also at the CBU area. So
Are there garages?
there's 6 parking spaces there.
6
And
by the
6
mailbox.
By the mailbox, yes. And there's like a little hammerhead turnaround area. So, basically we're looking at 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, so you'd have room for 4.
So it is double, not single garage on each?
2-car
Okay.
garages, yes, sir.
I'd guess that's probably about 40 feet.
Okay. At 40 feet, then you can fit stack 4 cars in the driveway.
So if it's a 2-car garage, I'm trying to think it's a double wide driveway then?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is there any picture we have where it shows Cross Creek in it?
Not with these plans. I could probably bring it up on an aerial if you'd like to see, though.
Yeah, I'd like to see where it is.
Yeah, let me bring it up on Google.
Thank you.
Sure.
No, I meant, did I say Cross Creek? I meant Cross Run.
Oh, Kraus Run.
Kraus Run.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I was thinking.
Yes,
too.
okay.
I was thinking, yeah.
Kraus Run would show up on our
Here we go.
aerial photo at the end. So it's probably the easier place to see it right there. Just to the left of the gentleman's insert picture. So right immediately adjacent to it, I see the arrow right there.
Here.
There it is.
Yes. That's Kraus Run, where it comes from underneath the turnpike.
Okay.
So it would really impact those homes, it would just impact the ones down the street.
Question for either Susan or Ryan. Taking a look at the stormwater budget. We've got 200,000 in this year for Kraus Run. Does that help with this particular issue?
There really haven't been any engineer discussions regarding that
So
project.
we've just got funds
Yes.
there
Yes,
to deal with it.
correct.
So if you don't mind for a second, can we go back to talking a little bit about the driveways? So you have the 10 foot by 10 foot hammerhead, and then you also said that it's a double wide driveway because of the 2-car garage all the way to the street. It doesn't seem like, is there enough room for that with the side by side houses? Because for me, my main concern is being able to pull straight out onto Pioneer. It can be very dangerous for the residents to back out onto the street. And unfortunately, I have firsthand knowledge of that living on Middle Road for a long time with similar types of traffic and speeds and things along those lines. So having probably 2 cars in the driveway at the same time and the ability to turn one of them around to head out front first I think is paramount for the safety of whoever purchased these houses and also the Hampton residents driving along the street.
It's not designed for the ability to have 4 cars and be able to access the hammerhead. So you can access it, you know, as a visitor parked there, but if there are 2 cars parked in tandem to each other, then you wouldn't have the ability to use the turnaround.
Then somebody's backing out.
Yes, sir.
Because kind of if this was something that I purchased, it's a smaller townhouse as it is. The garage space will probably use for storage, not necessarily to house a car. And then you're going to have 2 cars in the family. So probably residents, from my perspective, would be somebody would be backing out on a fairly regular basis.
I understand your statement, but I'm not sure I totally agree with that opinion.
That's fair.
That people don't park in their garages. I do, some people don't, I get it, but I don't think that's necessarily a given fact.
So I have a question related to the driveways for the duplexes. Each side has an independent driveway, resulting in 24 driveways going out onto South Pioneer Road.
Yes.
Why not do a shared driveway for each duplex to have the number of driveways that are going out onto South Pioneer Road?
It had to do with the architecture of the buildings themselves, in which the builder has sort of mandated for us that the driveway garages all would be on the right side. So as you're facing the houses, the 2 duplexes from the street, the garage and driveway would both be on the right-hand side of both units. So in the scenario you're talking about.
Garage, house, not house, garage.
Yes. Part of that also occurs because of the grade change as you're coming down. So if you put the 2 garages together, meaning the 2 driveways together, then basically what you have is about a 32-foot wide driveway, and the street is pitching down, and you've got a driveway like this, and now you're not dealing with trying to make 16 feet, now you're trying to make 32 feet meet with that, and I think that's primarily the reason the builders stay away from that configuration. That configuration works really great in Florida or other flatlander area, but not here in the Pittsburgh region.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
with, I'm just thinking and looking, with all of the water and lines and everything up there, I'm looking at the backyards. Can anybody, potential resident, do anything in the backyard? I mean, a fence or
Pool.
swing
or-
set. Will they be able to do anything in the backyard?
Certainly there is space for swing sets. There is definitely not space for a swimming pool or to build an in-ground swimming pool. It's not going to happen. The backyard originally had a swale there, and that was taking up a considerable part of the backyard area with that. So instead, we put a storm sewer through there with inlets at every lot line, so that we're picking up water all the way through that. So it gives the individual.
Those are the blue line?
The blue line is the storm sewer. So it allows for the backyards to be almost 100% usable within that area.
And if I'm thinking about this correctly, so if I walk out the back door, I'm looking up, like these lines. So this
Yes.
is higher than the home.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this whole thing kind of slopes down to the road and the turnpike. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Will there be an HOA?
Yes.
Will the HOA be able to put a control in? I'm visualizing above ground swimming pools in that dense of a housing next to each other becomes an eyesore for the neighbor, one to the other. Would that be up to the HOA to make that specification to allow or not allow?
It would be in the HOA documents, and that's a good suggestion. And we'll check on the draft of the HOA documents. I believe we've provided you a copy.
I believe so.
Originally, so Amanda can look, but I will also look, and we'll, if it hasn't, I think that would be an excellent restriction to place into the backyard area.
But I think an HOA, once established, after the developer hands it over, an HOA can change its bylaws and its documents, I think. I'm not sure to what extent. Of course, they're also subject to space and whatever ordinances we have.
They can change them, but it takes a certain majority of them to do so. So if 1, 2, or 3 of them decide they want to do it, the others can't stop it.
They also have to show up at the meetings, so that's always a problem with HOA. Might be talking slightly from experience.
Amanda, can you say again what the objections were of the EAC, focusing on any kind of concerns they had with environmental impact, please?
Sure. So their motion was, they recommend that council does not approve the plan based on the outstanding concerns that include environmental concerns regarding land area disturbed, stormwater affecting residents on site and downstream, affecting general stream quality, air pollution, and noise. And then I can read the rest if you want. Those were the safety concerns and the accessibility concerns after that.
Yeah, I was just curious about the environmental impact concerns. Thank you.
And the comments regarding air pollution and noise were not those generated by the development, but the impacts of the turnpike onto the development. So I don't want you to think that we are generating the noise or we're generating the poor quality, air quality that they are surmising takes place there.
Now, I'll be honest, I'm very concerned about the experience that we have in terms of the noise issue from the turnpike. If you're asking individuals to buy homes over $300,000, I think it's fair if they at least have a heads up that you're buying a home and you may or may not hear the trucks on the turnpike. I think that's an issue. That's, can they hear it from inside their home when they're watching TV or trying to go to bed? Are they going to hear the turnpike, and do they know that when they're buying that home?
Okay. They certainly should be able to, because there will be a model home there that they can go into, stand in, can't sleep there overnight.
Right.
but,
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what time you go to the model home, right? It's just, we've seen the issue here in council before, so it's just something that I think needs to be addressed in some way.
All right, are there any other questions?
Just quickly, the front of the building, is it all brick? Is it siding? What do we envision?
I
Do we know?
believe NVR uses primarily siding, but I have seen brick, I have seen stone, so I don't know.
I would think the price point, it's probably siding.
And then
honestly.
square foot of each of the duplexes is 1,500, 2,000 approximately.
Probably in that, probably closer to the 2,000 square foot range for this particular model.
Can you just talk a little bit about why you chose to maximize every square foot of this property? It's a difficult property to is. It's, you know, we're going back and forth about stormwater, the road access, all these things, and as opposed to putting just a handful of larger houses on the property, why we're going down the path of you know, the 26 different houses and just cramming all this stuff into this 16-acre plot.
Probably the driving factor on the number of units is to the expense of just developing the property associated and those associated costs. So I think
So it's an
that's
economic decision.
I do thousands of land development projects over the last 40 years, and every one of them was an economic decision. I've never worked for anybody who's doing it for the fun of it. So every
Well,
decision,
not for the fun of it, but it's not necessarily for the fun of it, just for safety and water management and, you know, just, you know, nobody does it for the fun of it. We do it for the money. I absolutely understand.
yeah.
But there's some other concerns that we have to take into account other than the economic benefit for the developer.
And I think we've tried to work within all of your code requirements to meet those standards. I believe we have. So the fact that your code allows us to do these number of units sort of brings us to this conclusion.
And one more, remind me where we're at with the driveways and the water management. Are we curbing? Are we culvert? I've heard both. I'm neglecting where we're at right now.
Sure. The original thought was that we would put a culvert underneath each driveway, and that really became very cumbersome and was fraught with the potential for those to fill in and long-term maintenance, etc. And so through discussions, it was agreed that we could put a curbing on there, and when we do that, then that allowed us to be able to drain to the inlets that are in the street and then capture that water and take it into the detention facility. So it was a much better way for handling that stormwater and removing the individual culverts that was originally anticipated.
And maybe a Jim.
There's sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
And the curbing will be concrete curbing, not road paving curbing.
I believe it's asphalt curbing is the township standard.
Yeah,
Asphalt.
it would be asphalt. They're gonna have to do a overlay on the road, so when they do that, I assume they would put it in at that point.
Jim, back to that other thing. Remind me, culvert would mean owners of the property are responsible for it. If there's culverts under the driveways, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the curbing would mean the township eventually is responsible.
If it's within the roadway and taking the water from the roadway.
Okay.
So typically, yes, that would be taken over by the township. Anything in the back of the yards that takes it back, that would be private.
Okay.
Just for the public's sake, when we talk about a culvert, what we're talking about is a 12 to 15 inch storm pipe there underneath each driveway, which we are no longer doing.
Thank you.
Will the sidewalk be a separate concrete sidewalk, or will it be the sidewalk like we have put in along Topnick Drive? Where it's the sidewalk and then the curb then goes right into the road? Will there be separation between the sidewalk and the road?
I believe so.
I believe so, yeah.
Typically there is.
Yes, I can see it on the drawing here, and yes, looks like that.
Your eyes are much better than mine.
It's a pink color, I can see it on here, it's the pink one we blew. Yeah.
Okay, I see it now, thank
And
you.
you've got, that's exactly where the storm sewer is going also, so that pink line is 5 feet wide, so it's probably about 10 feet off the back of the curb.
All right, thank you. All right, does anyone else have any questions related to this?
That sidewalk would be the responsibility of the HOA as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's,
Yes.
we wouldn't take that.
Yeah. Mr. Worling, you looked like you wanted to make a comment earlier.
I have not been sworn in yet.
Does Mr. Worling need to be sworn in?
If he intends to make a comment, he does.
Could somebody,
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? And will you spell your last name, please?
W-E-R-L-I-N-G.
And just so Mr. Midgley can hear you, if you
Oh,
could come
yes.
up to the microphone, please.
The question I have is, where are all the cars gonna go? They can either go that way to North Park or this way to Wickline Road.
Do you mean the homeowners when they pull out of their driveway?
The traffic survey went in what direction?
They did a traffic study regarding the site distance, and I don't believe that as far as I can recall, I can certainly look it up, I don't believe that it included what direction, they would be traveling, but I can look that up for you.
I only briefly in the back of the room figured out that on the weekends, there's gonna be 800 to 1,000 vehicles on the weekends headed west and south off of that road.
Off of South Pioneer?
Yeah, it's 4 cars per unit, 4 trips a day on the weekend. That's a lot of traffic. Thank you.
We did not testify that each homeowner is gonna have 4 vehicles. What we were talking about was visitor parking, and that the expectation is that the homeowners, because it's a 2-car garage, will have 2 cars.
All right, does anyone else have any other questions or comments at this point? That's what I was going to do, but I thought maybe you had another comment.
No, ma'am.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing for the Frey Keene preliminary PRD application 23-08?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Fritsch?
Favor.
Mr. Midgley?
Favor.
Mr. Sholey?
Favor.
Ms. Blackburn?
Favor.
Dr. Johnson?
Favor.
Thank you very much, and we'll continue to work with the staff and the consultants.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Good night. All right, do we have any other business at this point? All right, then we are going to adjourn this portion of the meeting and move directly into our agenda meeting. I've already done a call to order, so administration, please, first item.
Yes, one of our largest capital projects this year is the replacement of the Clearview Road Bridge to Route 8. This project replaces the existing bridge with a pre-constructed span, and it actually will widen the entrance or exit from Clearview Road onto Route 8. The new span is slightly wider than the existing bridge, and therefore necessitated us getting easements from property owners on either side of the span. One property owner already signed their easement and notarized it. The other one Their legal counsel and GTN, Patrick Gannon did a really good job, by the way, Vince.
Thank you.
They have agreed on wording of the agreement of the easement, and I expect them to have it signed and notarized by the regular meeting later this month. What I'm seeking is council's authorization to execute both easements and file them with the county at our meeting 2 weeks from now. So, and to give you a real quick update on the project itself, you're probably going to start seeing utility work down there near Clearview Road in the next month. There's a fair amount of utility relocation associated with this. Water, sanitary sewer, gas and electric lines all have to be relocated. Construction is expected to begin in June, and the project will end probably in late September, early October.
So we're looking at that bridge being closed for 4 to 5 months?
Yeah, we've notified the school district and all the first responders, so they're aware. The detour will probably be Hart's. Actually, Susan had a good suggestion using Hart's Run Road as the detour associated with this gateway. It had another idea for the detour, so in talking with our first responders, they felt Hart's Run Road was safer. So,
All right, any questions? All right, next item, please.
all right, this one's a tad bit more complicated. The Allegheny Land Trust, which is a nonprofit that their mission is to preserve land in Allegheny County specifically. They've been working the past few years to acquire parcels for an uncompleted phase of the Hemlocks plan off of Big Rock Road. Amanda, do we have a picture of the plan itself? Yeah. So you see it on the screen there. The land trust the goal here would be for the land trust to acquire these parcels and then transfer them to the county so that North Park could be expanded. The total expansion, once they're done, it would expand North Park by 22 acres. They've already transferred 40 parcels, and they're planning to do another 25 this summer. So the issues that the land trust is running into, there's 91 parcels, and on this map, I guess they're a turquoise color. They're having trouble tracking down the owners, but specifically with those 91s, there are liens and penalties associated with those liens for those parcels. The cost of paying off the liens and the penalties far exceeds what the land trust has available for this project. So the land trust is requesting of the township, and they've actually had conversations with both us and the school district. Jeff Klein was present at those meetings. We're kind of taking the lead on it. They're requesting that we exonerate the liens and penalties for these 91 parcels. The face value of these liens is only about $6,500. The total penalty, with the penalty and interest, though, the total value is $34,000. It gives you an idea of how long these liens have been in place. And we're talking liens that have been in place for decades here. GTN and the Land Trust Legal Counsel are still working out who handles the legal fees for preparing and filing the petitions. Again, something I expect to have an answer on at our meeting 2 weeks from now. The exoneration will be conditioned on the parcels being acquired by the Land Trust. Now, as a practical matter, the odds of the public infrastructure was never installed for any of these lots to be accessible. The odds of us actually getting these liens paid off and acquiring this money is very, very, very low. Whereas, on the other hand, I could say, the land trust acquiring this property and enlarging North Park, there is a tangible benefit to our residents in that case. Just so you know, there's 3 parcels on there. They're in light blue. A couple years ago, we actually transferred those to the county. They were owned by the township to expand North Park. So what's really before council tonight, I just kind of want to get a feel if there is a desire to exonerate the liens and penalties associated with these parcels and assist the land trust in their acquisition of them.
I don't want to pay any legal fees, do they?
No,
I mean,
I
if they want to
think that's
acquire
fair.
them, they can pay for that.
Yes, I would agree. Okay.
All right, Jerry has spoken. I'm in agreement with Jerry.
Vacant lot get assessed stormwater?
We have, no, not that I'm aware.
Anything with over 400 square feet of impervious, 400 or 500 square feet.
But undeveloped, no.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, I was just going to say we need to clear that off with Jordan off the rolls as well.
And Jordan's been involved in the discussions with the land trust too, so they're aware of what needs to happen. Sorry.
So out of curiosity, what happens if the land trust cannot identify who the owners of these properties are and have them transferred?
There are other options. The county's vacant property program is a potential option for them. They're trying to do this to eliminate as many parcels as they can because this is actually the cheapest route. The vacant property program has an upfront fee of, I believe, $5,000. So they're trying to avoid doing that if they can.
Right. I just wanted to make sure they weren't going to get into a spot where they couldn't actually acquire all of it.
No. They're trying to avoid the more rigorous ways to acquire property. I just say that.
Ryan, all 91 are in Hampton Township?
Yes.
And there's already 40?
40 that have already been transferred to the county, another 25 this summer.
So these are the problem ones?
Yes.
Was the general idea that it looks like somebody was going to build townhomes or something like that a long time ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was part of Hemlock, but it was never developed, and so there's no infrastructure or anything going, so they're landlocked lots.
Yeah.
Do we have any, I mean, obviously you're working with the school and Mr. Klein, cart before the horse, do we have anything from the school district that they're gonna also do the same? You know, if we say, okay, let's do this, waive all the fees, the school could say, well, we're not gonna do that.
In my discussions with Mr. Klein and the superintendent, there is, from their perspective at least, an interest in moving forward this if we would take the lead on it. They have the same questions. They just want to make sure that legal costs are going to be covered.
Yeah.
They don't want to incur any legal fees as a result of this. But again, the odds of you getting anything back on any of these parcels, pretty much non-existent.
And ultimately, if the school district didn't approve, then the transaction wouldn't take place.
Yeah.
Do we have any indication of the intention? Like, we're going to put in a water slide or anything? Do we have any idea what they're thinking about it?
From the county?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that area is wooded. My guess, knowing North Park as little as I do, but just going there regularly, I don't foresee that being developed into anything.
Okay.
I mean, there's no infrastructure back there. I think that's the biggest problem that you would have for putting anything serious back there.
So most likely we're just looking at trails.
Pretty much. And a wooded area, yeah. Does wonders for open space preservation and water quality, I would just say that.
All right, any other questions? Any other items under administration?
No.
All right, Chief, Public Safety?
I have nothing.
All right, Community Services, please.
Yeah, actually, we'll handle that. The 2024 Capital Improvement Program, I have to remember not to drink water before I talk, includes an allotment of $125,000 to run conduit and install lighting along the unlit portion of the trail, as we discussed, from the sort of end of the community center parking lot around the soccer stadium, around the soccer complex. There's a mandatory pre-bid meeting for this project on Friday, and 4 electrical contractors, as of today, have already picked up the bid package. The bids will be due on April 22nd, and I expect to have a recommendation for our regular meeting 2 weeks from tonight. So.
All right, anyone have any questions? Anything else?
No.
She says yes.
Yes.
I would just like to give a brief update regarding last Tuesday's flood in the Public Works Department. Obviously, our foremen on a daily basis look at the weather before they send everybody out. And anytime there's a rain or storm in the forecast, they will go out and inspect a lot of the outfalls and catch basins, make sure everything is clear of debris, especially in the spring and the fall when all the leaves are on the ground. Last Tuesday, we knew that the typical hotspots were going to be affected. The Ferguson Road, the Mont Royal between Northwood Acres and Duncan, there's always a washout there, which they have to close the road. Bank School Road, there's a home that always gets flooded out just because of private systems that go through there, and obviously South Pioneer Road. During the event, crews are responding to the emergency calls that are being taken care of at that time. Every department basically works together to get things done that they can. I do get calls like, well, why don't they clean it out at that time? That water is flowing so fast they can't get to any of the systems. After the event, they go out and clean and inspect the catch basins and outfall. There's a lot of debris and mud. They're continuing this week to clean out mud. They're assisting the fire department with their parking lots and DES with some of their sanitary sewer issues. We are still working on some affected areas. The foreman and I have a meeting tomorrow morning with PennDOT representatives regarding the Ferguson Road area at Sweeney. The whole system under Ferguson and Sweeney is just clogged with debris. So whether it was like that before and that helped with the unfortunate situation down there. And last time there was a situation like this, they had flushed it out. So that's why we're meeting with them. And we'll walk South Pioneer and the creek along there. Because with Janet's, concerns, that's always a concern with the trees and everything in the creek. So, okay.
I did see several social media posts commending the crews for the work that they were doing to
Well, that was
mitigate that
nice.
flooding. So that was nice to see. Please convey our thanks to the crews.
It definitely will. Thank you.
And also please convey my thanks for everything they did for cleanup day.
I will.
Do we have an update of how many garbage bags we filled?
It was another great event, and I truly appreciate everybody coming out and helping. It's amazing. We had 115 volunteer residents. A lot of them were the boys and girls lacrosse teams, the Girl Scouts. They were there as well. And then there's a lot of regular residents that come and help. We had 598 bags of garbage, one TV and one tire.
Your TV?
Yes.
Yes, one TV.
It was
And
recycled,
it's just,
yes.
it's a great event. So definitely, I sent out thank you letters today, and I'm going to put a post on our social media tomorrow. So thank you for coming out as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, environmental services. Anything?
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a couple quick updates for council. First off, the emergency lighting project that we did on McCully Road on March 28th was a quick success. It took us a little over 4 hours to complete that project. And a special thank you to the police department for making an officer available to keep traffic from coming off of Route 8, just to keep everybody safe. Like Sue had mentioned, the floodwaters from last week played a lot of devastation for us as well. Our facility, our wastewater treatment plant was, the grounds themselves were basically underwater for well over a day. It took a couple days before the waters finally receded. Thankfully, no water got into our buildings, but we were getting close, as we traditionally are in these situations. Then thirdly, we had one of our manholes along Gorehead Run. This is the run near Clearview Road that runs parallel with Route 8. One of the manholes, due to the sheer force of the floodwaters, actually knocked off one of the manholes and sent it downstream. We have been able to temporarily make a repair to that to get us by, doing two things. One, keeping the water in our system, and secondly, keeping the creek out of it. So again, that's a temporary fix. Thanks to Public Works for bringing down a piece of equipment to be able to help us get that back in order. This has been a problem for us for well over a year or two now. We've had these situations happen in the past. We have been working on this with engineering as well as permitting with the DEP. Prior to this week, we were still waiting for our permit to be received by the DEP. KLH had reached out and pressured a little bit to get something moving, and they finally did this week. So we finally have a green light to be able to do work within that waterway, and we are working with one of our local contractors to come up with our list of materials and come up with a schedule to start making repairs on these manholes. They're well over 50 years old. They've seen countless major storms, and they are simply deteriorated to the point where there was this one, they're being knocked over and falling down. So we must correct these and make it right. So I'll keep everybody informed of where we're at as we move forward with pricing and timing and all this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Zoning and planning, please.
Okay, thank you. So we discussed the Fry Cane plan, and I will keep you all updated as we move through any responses that we receive for that. The next item that we have is the Indian Spring Lane simple subdivision. Let me share this so we can see it. So this is a fairly simple application. One lot is conveying a half acre to lot 2 here. So the property line did go here previously, or where it is now. They will be changing it to go right here. So there's not a lot to this. The applicant will need a modification, which I am recommending the approval of because our saldo states that you need to have frontage along a public road They will have sufficient frontage here, but this is a private road. So where they used to have frontage here along Indian Spring Lane as well, that will go away, and that's why they need that modification. But the access is already through this place, this road here, Oak Hill, I believe this is. So there's not going to be any change to the access, and I don't see that being a problem. So I will be recommending approval of that at your next meeting, and I will prepare a motion with recommended conditions of approval.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right, anything else?
I do not.
All right, other business.
Just note the Recycle Rama coming up on May 11th. That's one of our best attended events.
All right, does anyone else have any other business that they'd like to bring up at this time?
Just wanted to bring up that Depreciation Lands is having their opening season event on May 5th. And then they have Friendship Day, which is a free day for anyone who wants to stop by. I believe I'm looking at the 19th.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, then I'll adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.
Good night.